What if I told you the woman who made millions laugh was hiding tears no one dared to see? Ellen DeGeneres, the unstoppable force who turned daytime TV into a sanctuary of joy, who gave us Dory's unforgettable voice, who shattered barriers with fearless courage. She rose higher than most could ever dream. But the higher she climbed, the darker the shadows became. And now, at 67, the storm that surrounds her feels more relentless than ever. Behind the radiant smile that conquered America lies a story the world was never supposed to hear. And tonight, we're pulling back the curtain. If Ellen ever left a mark in your memory, whether you admire her or question her, hit that like button right now, because this story deserves to be remembered. Ellen's childhood wasn't built on laughter. Born January 26, 1958, in Louisiana, she grew up in a modest family. But at just 15, her world collapsed. Her parents divorced. Her family fractured. And when her mother remarried, the home that should have protected her became a prison of silence. A stepfather who crossed boundaries that should never be crossed. A betrayal so devastating it would scar her forever. Her mother, Betty, was battling breast cancer at the time. Fragile, exhausted, clinging to survival. When Ellen tried to tell her the truth, she wasn't believed. Not because her mother didn't love her, but because the reality was too unbearable to face. That disbelief cut deeper than the betrayal itself. Imagine being 15, hurt, broken, and silenced in your own home. That wound stayed with Ellen for decades. Years later, she admitted that her comedy, the laughter the world loved, was born from pain. Humor became her shield, her rebellion. Every punchline was survival. Every laugh she earned from strangers was a victory against the silence that once tried to crush her. But survival came at a cost. After one semester at the University of New Orleans, Ellen dropped out. No diploma, no clear path. Just hunger and a burning will to survive. She worked any job she could find, typing in a law office, folding clothes at J.C. Penney, waiting tables in smoky diners, even painting murals with paint-stained hands. Her paychecks were small, her rent was late, and dinner was often half a sandwich saved from work. But through it all, she scribbled jokes into a battered notebook. At night, in a rented room with peeling walls, Ellen rehearsed her sets to a cracked mirror, or sometimes just her pet, the only witness to a young woman turning heartbreak into humor. That's where her comedy was forged. Not in glamorous clubs, not in Hollywood, but in silence, in hunger, in loneliness. By the early 1980s, Ellen was on stage in New Orleans, testing her material in smoke-filled bars where failure was paid in silence. Sometimes the crowd laughed, sometimes they didn't. But Ellen refused to stop, because every laugh meant she was winning, not just against doubt, but against the pain that had once threatened to break her. And then came 1986, The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. For a young comedian, this was the holy grail. Ellen walked onto that stage trembling, but inside she carried every scar, every hungry night, every punchline sharpened in darkness. Her set was sharp, effortless, disarming. And then it happened. Johnny Carson, the gatekeeper of comedy, invited her to sit on the couch. A signal that meant, this one matters. That night, Ellen wasn't just a comic. She was a survivor who had finally been heard. The waitress, the secretary, the girl rehearsing alone in a cracked mirror, she was now the voice America couldn't ignore. By the mid-90s, Ellen was no longer just a stand-up comic. She had her own sitcom, a show named simply Ellen. For a moment, it seemed like destiny had finally rewarded her years of pain and persistence. But fate wasn't done testing her. the puppy episode. Ellen's character came out as gay, and off-screen, Ellen did the same. It was bold, it was groundbreaking, it was honest, and it was dangerous. She knew the risks. She could lose her career, her audience, her reputation. And she was right. Advertisers fled. Ratings crashed. Headlines turned cruel. By 1998, Ellen was canceled. Not because it lacked talent, not because it wasn't funny, but because the world wasn't ready for a woman brave enough to live openly. Her rise to fame had been hard, but her fall? It was brutal. Overnight, Ellen went from America's sweetheart to Hollywood's outcast. The same world that once cheered her bravery now turned its back, leaving her to walk alone through the wilderness of her own truth. It was brutal. It was lonely. And for Ellen, it was hauntingly familiar. The silence that had crushed her as a child had come roaring back, only louder this time, backed by an entire culture that punished her for daring to be real. But what looked like the end was only the beginning. Ellen's fall wasn't failure, it was sacrifice. The cost every pioneer pays when they step too far ahead of their time. And Ellen was no stranger to survival. She refused to surrender. Piece by piece, she rebuilt. Comedy clubs, small gigs, voiceover jobs, anything to remind the world she still had something to give. Then, in 2003, lightning struck again. The Ellen DeGeneres Show. A gamble that networks thought would flop became a cultural phenomenon. She turned daytime television into a cathedral of joy. Her laughter, her dancing, her acts of kindness, for nearly 2 decades, she ruled the airwaves. Dozens of Emmys, millions of viewers, a platform that felt unstoppable. And beyond TV, she gave life to Dory in Pixar's Finding Nemo, hosted the Oscars, the Grammys, the Emmys. She became not just a comedian, but a cultural icon. And in 2016, the girl who had once been silenced received the highest civilian honor in America. President Barack Obama placed the Medal of Freedom around her neck, tears filling the room. The irony? The very honesty that had once destroyed her was now the foundation of her greatest triumph. For millions, Ellen wasn't just funny. She was proof that resilience could turn rejection into revolution. But just when the world thought Ellen had finally beaten the storm, another storm was waiting. And this time, it would nearly destroy her legacy. It began with a tweet. March 20th, 2020. The world was in lockdown, desperate for connection. Comedian Kevin T. Porter posted a message that looked like a joke, but landed like a grenade. Right now, we all need kindness. You know, like Ellen DeGeneres always talks about. She's also notoriously one of the meanest people alive. He asked for stories, promising to donate to charity. And the internet exploded. Replies poured in by the thousands. Baristas, waitresses, former staff, audience members. Story after story painted a chilling picture that didn't match the smiling woman who ended every show with "Be kind." Some claimed they were told never to look Ellen in the eye. Others described coldness, even cruelty. Whether every story was true or not no longer mattered. What mattered was the fracture, the illusion of kindness cracking wide open. Clips resurfaced. Mariah Carey caught off guard. Dakota Johnson pushing back. Taylor Swift blinking away tears. Jokes that once seemed harmless now looked darker. And the internet did what it does best. It turned whispers into a tidal wave. The phrase, "replace Ellen," trended. The playground she had once ruled, social media, had become her executioner. Then came the breaking point. July 16th, 2020. BuzzFeed News published an investigation. 10 former employees described a toxic workplace. Fear, intimidation, misconduct by senior producers. Within days, Warner Media launched an investigation, executives were fired, and the kingdom of kindness Ellen had built was collapsing in real time. When the new season premiered that fall, Ellen stood under the bright lights and tried to take responsibility. She said the words, she apologized, but for many, it was too late. Ratings plummeted, sponsors vanished. The trust she had spent decades building drained away almost overnight. Celebrities like Katy Perry and Kevin Hart stood by her, but others confirmed the stories. The magic was gone. By May 2021, Ellen announced season 19 would be her last. She said the show was no longer a challenge, but everyone knew the truth. This wasn't retirement. It was surrender. And when the final episode aired in 2022, with Jennifer Aniston closing the circle, the applause rang hollow. It was a farewell laced with unease. Ellen smiled, but her laughter seemed tired. The show that had once been her sanctuary now felt like a shadow of what it used to be. And here's the heartbreaking truth. Legacies are fragile. Decades of brilliance can be undone in a single storm. Ellen's fall didn't erase the good she had done, nor did it excuse the pain others said they endured. It revealed something deeper, that no one, no matter how beloved, can carry perfection. And yet, Ellen's story isn't just about fame, it's about love. And love, for her, was never gentle. It was a battlefield. Just as she came out to the world, Ellen stepped onto the red carpet holding the hand of actress Anne Heche. It was simple. Two women, smiling, unapologetic. But that single act lit Hollywood on fire. To Ellen and Anne, it was love. To the world, it was scandal. Hollywood recoiled, contracts vanished, careers crumbled. Anne was torn apart by tabloids and family rejection. What should have been a celebration of truth became a crucifixion. Their love lasted until 2000, but by then, the damage was done. Ellen retreated into silence. Anne stumbled through years of mental health battles. Every misstep turned into a public spectacle. And then, in 2022, tragedy struck. A car crash claimed Anne's life at just 53 years old. For the world, it was a headline. For Ellen, it was a ghost. The love that had cost them everything, ending in silence. But love did not give up on her. In 2001, she found comfort with Alexandra Hedison. A photographer with a quiet spirit, Alexandra gave Ellen something she hadn't had in years: stillness. Their 3-year relationship was marked not by scandal, but by calm. But Ellen's wounds were too raw, her spirit too restless. By 2004, they parted ways, quietly, with respect. It was a bridge Ellen had to cross, because waiting for her on the other side was the love that would change everything. Ellen was 46, scarred by heartbreak and betrayal. And then she met Portia de Rossi, a 31-year-old actress battling her own demons, eating disorders, depression, the crushing weight of hiding her true self. When their eyes met, it wasn't just attraction, it was recognition. Two women, both battered by expectation, both aching for a love that could heal instead of hurt. And this time, Ellen wasn't just about to fall in love. She was about to find salvation. And then, something shifted. For the first time in years, Ellen's laughter wasn't a shield. It wasn't performance. It came from a place of joy, raw and unguarded. And Portia, she saw her not as an icon, not as an image on magazine covers, but as a soul. Their love wasn't loud, but it was healing. Sunlit breakfasts in quiet kitchens, walks where words faded into silence that felt safer than applause, waking up to someone who made the world less cruel. Ellen once admitted, "Portia made me feel more loved than I ever thought possible." And Portia, with equal conviction, called Ellen her soulmate, the anchor who steadied her storms. By 2005, they had stopped hiding. Their love wasn't just companionship, it was rebellion. In a Hollywood still ruled by whispers, their decision to live in the open was dangerous. But they chose honesty over fear. And when California briefly opened its doors to marriage in 2008, they walked through it together, trembling hands linked, promising the world and each other that they would never apologize for who they were. It wasn't glamour, it was intimacy. A Beverly Hills home filled with friends wiping tears, laughter breaking through nerves, vows spoken with voices that shook. Ellen, at 50, glowed with disbelief, realizing she was living a dream she once thought impossible. Portia, 35, finally exhaled after years of exile from herself. That kiss, sealing their vows, was bigger than two women marrying. It was history bending. But love, no matter how deep, does not erase pain. Portia's struggles with self-image, Ellen's crushing fame, they didn't vanish. Hospital corridors replaced laughter some nights. Doubt returned like an old enemy. But this time, Ellen didn't run. She stayed. And Portia, her quiet anchor, never wavered. And then came 2020. The controversy, the headlines, the internet's cold glare. Millions who once adored Ellen turned away. But Portia didn't flinch. Her words cut through the storm. I stand by Ellen. 4 simple words, but they meant survival. That was love refusing to break. Nearly 2 decades later, Ellen and Portia are still inseparable. Their homes, from Beverly Hills to Montecito to a countryside retreat, aren't palaces of ego, but sanctuaries of art, animals, and peace. Ellen, once rehearsing jokes in a cracked mirror, now wakes beside the woman who restored her. Portia, once starving under impossible expectations, now thrives with someone who sees her as human, not perfection. Their love has survived scandal, illness, distance, and fame's cruel weight. If Anne was the fire and Alexandra the bridge, then Portia is the harbor, the final safe light where Ellen's restless soul found rest. But storms don't always come from the outside. Sometimes they creep in quietly, disguised as age. For Ellen, now in her late 60s, the battle was no longer headlines. It was her own body. Osteoporosis, arthritis, OCD, ADHD, pain that gripped her mornings, joints that trembled at night. A body that once electrified audiences now slowed her to stillness. For a woman who had spent her life moving, dancing, and running, this betrayal was crueler than any critic. And yet, she refused to collapse. Therapy became her lifeline. Meditation replaced performance. Slow walks with Portia replaced frantic rehearsals. And Portia became more than a partner. She became a guardian. Their home transformed into a sanctuary, every corner designed for healing. Ellen laughed once, "Portia makes me eat what I don't want to eat and move when I don't want to move." And she does it with love. Even as her body betrayed her, Ellen chose resilience. And in 2024, she stood on stage one last time, a farewell tour titled Ellen's Last Stand-Up. The jokes came, but so did confessions, stories of aging, fame's cruelty, and her own regrets. The laughter was tinged with melancholy because everyone knew this was her goodbye. When the curtain fell, she didn't chase the spotlight again. Instead, she and Portia disappeared into the English countryside. By 2025, their home in the Cotswolds had become a sanctuary of misty mornings, garden paths, and quiet evenings. From flipping Beverly Hills mansions to nurturing a slower, gentler life, Ellen had traded applause for peace. Her empire remained vast, over $450 million, countless homes, art, success. But no fortune could silence the ache in her bones or erase the shadows of past mistakes. Fame had given her everything and taken just as much. She admitted, in rare moments, that her sharpest jokes once hid her deepest wounds. But through all of it, through scandal, regret, and the inevitable decay of time, love endured. Gentle walks, therapy sessions, Portia's unwavering presence. For Ellen, the greatest treasure was not the mansions or medals. It was sitting beside Portia in their garden, the world reduced to two hands, two voices, two hearts that refused to break. Because her legacy isn't perfection. It isn't scandal. It isn't even laughter. It's resilience. It's daring to live honestly, even when it costs everything. And it's love, the kind that stays when the cameras turn away. So let me ask you, when you think of Ellen, what stays with you most? The comedy, the controversies, or the way she kept coming back, no matter how many storms tried to break her? Tell me below. And if this story has touched you, hit that like button, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs the reminder that even the most fractured lives can still be made whole.